The morning of Mia's 100th story began like any other. The sun rose slowly, stretching across rooftops and into windows. The wind carried the scent of distant rain. Birds stitched songs into the air. But in Mia's heart, something had shifted. There was no pull, no vision, no whispering realm waiting. And yet, there was a quiet knowing that this day held a meaning shaped not by magic, but by memory, by every footstep that had brought her here. She walked to the hill beyond the village, where wildflowers painted the fields in gentle brushstrokes of gold and violet. She stood beneath the old willow that had once been a sapling. Its roots had deepened, so had hers. In her hand, she carried nothing. No brush, no sketchbook. Only herself. She sat and closed her eyes. The wind hummed like a familiar melody, and for the first time in a very long time, she didn't need to imagine anything. Because it all came back to her. The Red Kingdom and its courage, the blue serenity of the lakes, the green wildness of growing things, the yellow laughter of joy, the purple mysteries of dream and wisdom. The forest that whispered names she had once forgotten, the desert that spoke in silence, the clockwork city that measured the soul, the harbor that welcomed her home, the mountain that showed her her own voice. And above all, the people, the echoes, the questions. Each place she'd walked had been both a world and a mirror. Each step forward had been a return to herself. She breathed deeply and smiled. She had not written her story. She had lived it. Suddenly, without fanfare, the grass before her shifted. A shape emerged, not rising from the earth but forming from it. A door. Simple, wooden, without a handle, standing alone with no wall to hold it. She rose and walked to it. Its surface pulsed gently beneath her fingers. She didn't ask what lay beyond. She didn't need to. She had learned that wonder wasn't about knowing. It was about trusting. She turned the invisible knob and stepped through. On the other side was light. Not blinding, not strange, but warm, like a memory, like a future. It wrapped around her like a blanket, and opened into a space that felt as wide as imagination itself. There were children playing in tall grass. There were elders telling stories by firelight. There were paints and songs and dance and silence. And in the middle of it all was a table. Upon it sat her 100 stories, bound, woven, living. Each chapter pulsed gently, as though breathing. She reached for one and opened it. The page was blank. And yet, as she placed her hand over it, her story wrote itself, not in words, but in light, in touch, in feeling. Someone approached. A girl, not unlike herself years ago. Eyes wide, fingers ink-stained, holding an empty book. "Will you tell me a story?" the girl asked. Mia looked at her with a smile that held a lifetime. "No," she whispered, "but I will help you find your own." And with that, Mia sat once more, this time not as the seeker, not even as the guide, but as the soil beneath the next seed. Because the truest end of any story is the beginning of someone else's. And so, beneath the sky without end, Mia opened her arms to the world and simply began again.